Hi, my name is Amaya. I'm 34, a psychologist in New York. But this story drags me back to 16, small town Oregon. Her eyes were ice, her voice sharper than broken glass. "I'd rather raise a dog than raise you," she said. The words hit harder than any slap could have managed. For years I carried them like chains, invisible but heavy. Every grade, every recital, every sleepless night was proof. Not of my worth, but of her endless hunger for perfection. I thought silence would save me, but silence became my prison. And that was only the beginning. Small-town Oregon looked kind, but our house rehearsed perfection. Fresh paint, trimmed hedges, smiles staged whenever neighbors glanced. Inside, warmth was rationed like a luxury too costly. Small-town Oregon looked kind, but our house rehearsed perfection. Fresh paint, trimmed hedges, smiles staged whenever neighbors glanced. Inside, warmth was rationed, a luxury we couldn't afford. Mom, Diana, sold dream houses and polished flawless impressions. Appearances first. Feelings last. Truth buried beneath lace runners. Dad Thomas had gentle eyes and a suitcase habit. "Your father works hard," Mom said. Translation: don't ask questions. His peace treaties kept plates intact but left hearts fractured. Justin arrived when I was 5 and slipped into her mold. Golden child. Easy grin. Fluent in Mom's shifting weather. Applause found him even on ordinary afternoons. I lived on echoes. Then came Goldie, the retriever with the golden treatment. Mom's voice softened, a lullaby I'd never been offered. "Who's my perfect girl?" she cooed, kissing soft ears. The dog curled on couches where my play clothes weren't allowed. At 10, my birthday glittered with rentals and hired smiles. Not because I asked, because the neighbors compared. Behind the snack table I heard Mom say it. "Amaya is diligent. Not quick like Justin, but diligent." Cold investment language. My worth appraised like square footage. Cake tasted like cardboard once you knew the exchange rate. Grades became currency. I chased A's like oxygen. Report cards earned critique, never pride. Second place meant I hadn't wanted it enough. Piano was posture, not joy. Practice became punishment. My hands memorized Chopin. My chest memorized thunder. Dad once gave me a journal with a tiny lock. "For your thoughts," he said, helpless wrapped as tenderness. Those pages became my only room with breathable air. I logged weather patterns no forecast would ever admit. Her tone, her phrases, the arithmetic of conditional love. By middle school, anxiety braided itself into my braid. Sleep thinned. Appetite shrank. I wore composure like armor. In public, we sparkled. At home, silence sharpened its knives. I kept trying, because trying was the only permission slip. Approval was a horizon Mom kept moving with her smile. I didn't know it then, but I kept writing. Every entry was refusal to disappear, a seed of truth. Not revenge. Not yet. Only survival. But the record was forming, and the lights would rise. By high school, achievement wasn't choice. It was oxygen. Sleep vanished. Anxiety drummed for hours. At 16, piano became my battlefield. Months of Chopin's Ballade No. 1 carved my hands. 5 a.m. practice. Midnight scales. Wrists in ice. Mom finally noticed, because scholarships entered the conversation. She hired coaches, booked a photographer, staged me like property. "Remember, you represent this family," she said before competition. "Not do your best. Not I'm proud of you. Just don't embarrass me in front of colleagues." At first, everything flowed. The audience leaned. Then pain shot up my wrist. A note cracked. I recovered, but slipped twice more before the bow. Applause rose. Some stood. Not my mother, stone-faced, hands still. The car ride home suffocated. Inside, she finally spoke. "What was that?" Dangerous. My hand cramped, I lost focus. "You embarrassed us," she hissed. The board was watching. "Mom, it was difficult. Professionals slip." Her face hardened. "Don't make excuses. Justin never excuses." "This isn't a game!" My voice tore. "I've practiced until my hands hurt. Nothing is enough." She stepped closer, voice colder. "How dare you after all I've given? Lessons, coaches, opportunities children dream about." "I'd trade all of it," I cried, "for love." Then came the sentence I still taste. "Sometimes I'd rather raise a dog than raise you." Sharper than any blade. Final. Cruel. I ran upstairs, locked my door, collapsed in sobs. Hours later, Dad knocked, carrying quiet regret. "She didn't mean it," he offered. "Yes, she did," I whispered. "And you let her." He left again. Something hardened in me that night. Approval craving rotted away. A vow of escape formed. From then, school became strategy, not validation. I studied for scholarships, not applause. Piano trimmed to survival levels. Mom noticed. Your playing is suffering. I'm focused on academics, I said. Anxiety still clawed at night. I smiled. I crumbled. Until Mrs. Lawson, my English teacher, saw through. Your essay is brilliant, she said, but bleeding. I told her everything. The coldness, favoritism, the dog. She listened, then gave me the word that fit. Abuse. Her validation cracked the concrete I'd grown under. From that day, my journal sharpened. Quotes, tones, patterns. Not revenge, just proof I wasn't crazy. The evidence stacked like stones in secret. One day, they'd form a monument Mom couldn't deny. I should have broken then. Instead, I planned escape. NYU said yes. Scholarship attached like wings I could trust. Dad surprised us both by standing taller than usual. It's her dream, he told Mom. She's earned it. For once, his voice didn't ask permission to exist. New York hit me like light through a locked room. Dorm air smelled of ramen, ink, and possible. Zara, my roommate, hugged like family and meant it. Psychology classes gave names to my invisible bruises. Neglect. Narcissism. Not imagination. Patterns. Documented. Undeniable. Dr. Hernandez noticed the way I never missed a beat. You bring lived insight, he said. That's not weakness. For the first time, expertise felt like home. Sundays, I saw real love at Marcus's family table. They argued, laughed, forgave, always landing soft. He held my hand like belonging was obvious. We dated, then drifted when grad schools split coasts. His home rewired my expectations more than he knew. My journal thickened, not rage, records, words, tone, context. Mrs. Lawson's word, abuse, fit like a stubborn key. I started asking different questions. New doors opened. Columbia accepted me for the master's program. Family systems, trauma recovery, casework in living rooms. Dr. Levine read my thesis and looked up gently. This should live beyond a library shelf, she said. Consider a book, accessible, useful, true. I hesitated. Exposure still felt like broken glass. But letters from interviewees kept landing like handholds. Me too. That was my mother. I thought I imagined it. Their words turned my research into a rope. At night I wrote, spine taped to honesty. I changed names but kept the air accurate. Chapter by chapter, the pattern hardened into form. I titled it More Than a Dog and didn't flinch. An agent said yes, then a bidding war. My editor, Sarah, told me, this isn't revenge. It's a map. We added resources, not just scars. The cover went to print. Buzz grew like fire. A morning show booked me, then a podcast. Clips traveled faster than I could refresh my inbox. Readers wrote confessions that sounded like my chest. I thought it was me. Now I know it wasn't. Success tasted sweet, but carried salt from older seas. I walked past a store window and saw my name stacked. My hands shook, not from fear, but recognition. The quiet thing I built was suddenly loud. I should have felt finished. Instead, the floor tilted. Truth rolls home, knocks on locked doors. Back in Oregon, phones lit up. Neighbors whispered. Mom called it fiction to anyone who'd listen. But fiction doesn't echo this loud. The real confrontation was still waiting, exactly where I left it. The book dropped and silence didn't follow. Noise did. Headlines, reviews, emails from strangers. And then, Oregon. My father's voice on the phone. Your mother found the journals. She's upset. Of course she was. Truth isn't her favorite mirror. She called it fiction. Hissed it to anyone listening. But the community wasn't buying the performance. Too many had seen her ice, her favoritism, her masks. This time, she couldn't bury it under hospitality and flowers. Justin rang next. His voice carried weight I'd never heard. I read it, he admitted. You weren't wrong. Being the favorite wasn't freedom. It was pressure. I was terrified of ending up like you. For the first time, we were siblings on the same page. Then came the demand, a family meeting. The colonial house gleamed, polished for battle. Fresh curtains, staged flowers, everything but honesty. I didn't stay there. Hotel near the airport, neutral ground. Therapist's advice. Never walk unarmored into the old arena. Dad opened the door, hugged me tight, regret in his eyes. Justin waited on the couch. Mom stood by the fireplace. Power stance. Chin high, eyes sharp as glass. Amaya, she said coolly. You've humiliated this family. What you wrote, mischaracterizations, especially of me. I sat in the armchair, refusing the sofa trap. They're not mischaracterizations. They're my experiences. And I documented them, not from memory alone. Journals, records. Her lip curled. So you exposed us to outsiders. Do you realize what this has done to my reputation? There it was, her real wound. Image, not relationship. This isn't about humiliating you, I said steadily. It's about helping people recognize emotional neglect. And yes, it happened here. Dad cleared his throat, voice steady for once. Diana, stop. We're not here to protect your image. We're here to listen to our daughter. My mother blinked, startled by his defiance. Then Justin added softly, She's right, Mom. You gave me unconditional acceptance. Amaya never had that. I saw it even when I was a kid. Her face cracked. So you're all against me now? After everything I sacrificed for this family? No, I said, calmer than I felt. We're not against you. We're against denial. The room went quiet. Then she whispered, I don't know how to be the mother you wanted. My chest tightened. I know, and I've accepted that. I don't need a perfect mother. I need truth. And truth is where any relationship has to start. For the first time, she didn't answer with ice. Her eyes brimmed. She looked small, human. Not a villain, just broken in ways she never admitted. Still, this wasn't a clean victory. No full apology, no miracle redemption. But cracks had formed in her armor. And once cracks exist, light can find its way. The real choice, what to do with those cracks, was mine. The meeting didn't end with hugs. It ended with silence, the fragile kind. But sometimes silence is better than lies. I flew back to New York carrying no apology, but carrying something else, an opening. My father called more often after that, his voice steadier, his words freer. Justin and I rebuilt our bond. Finally, brothers and sisters in truth, not competition. And my mother? She didn't transform overnight, but she did something I'd never seen. She started therapy. Awkward questions followed, halting, clumsy, but real. How's your work? Are you happy there? Tiny threads of care, fragile as spider silk. Meanwhile, my life moved. The book soared. Interviews, panels, speaking tours. Readers wrote, Your story saved me. I thought I was alone. I'm not. Their voices layered over my pain, turning scars into something shared, something useful. Then came David. Not a savior, but a partner. We met at a psychology conference. His calm steadiness felt like home. When he proposed, I faced the question, do I invite my mother to the wedding? Boundaries held me steady. I told her, come only if you respect this day. To my shock, she agreed. She sat in the front row, subdued, silent. When she finally approached, her words stumbled. The ceremony was beautiful. You make a lovely bride. I'm trying, Amaya. It wasn't redemption, but it was something. Sometimes trying is the only seed we get. And seeds given time can grow. 2 years later, my second book came. Not about pain, but about healing. Forgiveness not as absolution, but as freedom. I wrote, True healing isn't perfect closure. It's reclaiming your story. Building a life so full, the past no longer owns you. That was my quiet revenge. Not a scream, not a slap back, but truth. Truth so steady it couldn't be denied. Truth that cracked armor, shifted dynamics, and lit paths for others stumbling in shadows. I became more than her words, more than her neglect, more than a dog. I became myself. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family who hurt you? Share your story below. I promise you're not alone. Tap subscribe for more stories of survival, truth, and healing.
The first thing I noticed was the cold. Not the pain, not even the blood, but the cold tile pressed against my cheek, pulling the heat from my skin like it had a right to it. The taste of metal coated my tongue, thick and sharp. I tried to inhale, and pain rippled through my ribs like warning flares. I blinked, my vision blurring and clearing in waves until I saw his shoes. Declan's shoes, just a few feet away from my face. He wasn't speaking. He wasn't helping. He just stood there for a moment like he had somewhere better to be. And then he turned, stepped over my legs like I was a misplaced rug, and walked out of the apartment. I heard the door shut behind him with a casual click. I waited, for footsteps coming back, for Brielle's voice, for anything that would make sense of what had just happened. But the silence stayed. My phone buzzed weakly against the floor beside me, the screen cracked but still alive. I rolled just enough to see the message. Stay away from us. I stared at it. The words didn't sting. They sliced. She didn't ask if I was okay. Didn't apologize. Didn't even pretend to be confused. She had chosen him fully and without hesitation, and in doing so, she had unchosen me. My fingers trembled as I typed back a single word. Done. I didn't cry. Not yet. Something was shifting quiet seismic. It wasn't that I stopped loving my sister in that moment. It was that I stopped asking her to love me back. I sat up slowly, using the countertop to brace myself. Every breath was a reminder, but not the kind that begged for pity. The kind that tells you you're still alive, still capable, still in control of something. And in that silence, something unfamiliar settled inside me. It wasn't rage. It was resolve. Even before the bruises had started to bloom, I knew the pain ran deeper than that night. This didn't start with Declan's fist. It didn't even start with Brielle's silence. It started years ago in smaller ways when being overlooked was called keeping the peace. I was always the one who made things easier, the one who got straight A's without needing praise, who brought her own snacks to family trips so Mom wouldn't have to pack extra, the one who folded laundry at 14 because Brielle wasn't good at it and who stayed quiet at dinner so my father wouldn't snap when he was tired. Brielle, she was sunshine. Even when she did nothing, she shimmered. I still remember the year she got hired at a boutique in the mall. My mother acted like she'd landed on Forbes' list. She's finding herself, she said to anyone who'd listen. That same week, I'd been promoted to lead UX designer for a national campaign. When I shared the news over dinner, my mother smiled thinly and said, "That's great, honey, but just don't lose sight of the bigger picture, marriage a family." My achievements were fine as long as they didn't get too loud, as long as they didn't make anyone else uncomfortable. When Brielle got engaged to Declan, the whole family buzzed like he was royalty. Finally, Mom whispered to me once, "She's got her future in place. Now we just need to find someone for you." Like I was a glitch needing repair, like my life without a man was an unfinished sentence. That's when it really clicked. I wasn't their daughter. I was their backup plan, their extra set of hands, their emergency contact, the one they could lean on when things fell apart and ignore when they didn't. I let it happen. I folded myself smaller and smaller until all that was left was the version of me that kept everything functioning. But when I felt that tile against my cheek when my sister told me to stay away, I realized something that cracked through years of conditioning I had been built to be forgotten, and I was finally ready to disappear on my own terms. I reached for my phone again this time, not to reply, but to check something else. The mortgage pre-approval was still sitting in my inbox. I scrolled past the highlighted terms, the digital signature field already flagged with my name. I had almost forgotten it was there almost. It started months ago when Brielle and Declan came to me in a panic over their financing. They'd been denied once already. Declan's credit was a mess from 2 previous business ventures that folded within a year. Brielle was freelancing sporadic income and inconsistent tax records. They needed someone stable, solid, a sure thing. They needed me. "We just need your name on the paperwork," Brielle had said, her voice coated in ease like it wasn't a big ask. "You won't be responsible unless something goes wrong. Something always goes wrong." I helped anyway. I sat with Declan to comb through his credit report, walking him through how to challenge the collections and negotiate settlements. I even connected them with a mortgage advisor I trusted. I fronted the move-in deposit when Brielle's first payment was delayed. No repayment plan, no contracts, just faith, just family. When I brought up my hesitations softly, carefully, Brielle brushed them off. "You're being dramatic. It's just paperwork." Declan laughed and clinked his beer against mine. "You're like the third wheel we actually need." At the time, I told myself it was a compliment. That being needed was a kind of love, that what I gave would come back when it mattered. But standing in my apartment now, ribs aching and face still swollen, I saw every detail differently. Every favor, every signature, every dollar, it hadn't drawn us closer. It had tied me down, not as a sister, as an asset. They hadn't just expected me to show up. They'd built their life, assuming I would. I closed the mortgage email and opened a different tab, my bank's login page. The loan wasn't final yet, and my name was still there. It started with a question. That's what I keep coming back to. Just a question. We were standing in my kitchen finalizing dinner plans after looking over the wedding budget together. Declan had suggested cutting the catering team down to just 2 staff to save some cash, even though the guest list had recently doubled. I said gently, "Are you sure that's smart? That kind of corner cutting could end up being more expensive later." Brielle tensed immediately. "Camille, we've got it under control." I didn't press, just nodded. But Declan must have caught something in my face. Doubt, maybe. That was enough. He slammed his palm on the countertop and snapped, "You think just because you make more money, you get to judge everything we do?" I froze. "That's not what I—" He stepped closer. "You think you're so much better than us? Always have." His voice was getting louder, hotter. I instinctively stepped back, bumping into the island behind me. I glanced at Brielle, expecting her to say something to defuse him like she always did, but she didn't. Then came the shove. I hit the counter hard, the edge digging into my ribs. I gasped, stunned, but before I could react, he swung. A closed fist, right across my mouth. The taste of blood came instantly. The world went sideways. And then I was on the floor, the tile rushing up to meet me. But that's not what I remember most. What I remember is Brielle, standing there, watching, not moving, not shouting his name or running to me, just still, like she was weighing something. When they left, I stayed down. For seconds or minutes, I don't know. Eventually, I reached for my phone. Mariah answered on the second ring. Camille, I couldn't speak. I just cried. When I finally choked out what happened, every word, thick with shame and disbelief, she didn't hesitate. "This isn't a misunderstanding," she said, voice sharp with clarity. "It's assault, and you need to report it." She stayed on the phone as I pulled myself to my feet and made my way to the bathroom mirror. My reflection didn't look like me, but it was time she did. The next morning, I moved like I was made of glass, slow, careful, deliberate. Every part of my body protested, but my mind had never felt clearer. There was no fog, no doubt. I opened my laptop and signed into the bank's portal. The mortgage file was right at the top, flagged as pending. $820,000, approved conditionally, co-signed by me. I stared at the screen for a long time. My name was everywhere on the pre-approval, the liability breakdown, the repayment schedule. I'd made this possible. Without me, they were a couple with inconsistent income and a credit history that read like a cautionary tale. I started the revocation process. It wasn't a simple click. It was 3 verification steps, a phone notification, and a warning message in red. This action may result in cancellation of the loan agreement. Proceed only if you understand the legal and financial consequences. I clicked yes. Another pop-up appeared. Are you sure? Yes. Security questions followed. My first pet's name, my mother's maiden name. That one stung. Then came the final screen, a legal form dry and clinical. At the bottom was a signature line. One signature to undo every time I'd chosen to help them over helping myself. I rested my fingers on the mouse. They had expected me to keep giving, to stay silent, to keep my name attached even after they tore me away. But I wasn't their anchor anymore. I wasn't their insurance policy. I clicked sign. A small check mark appeared, followed by "Your guarantor agreement has been successfully withdrawn." I closed the laptop and let the silence settle. It wasn't heavy, it was clean. Somewhere in the city, they were probably finalizing centerpieces or comparing paint swatches. They had no idea the foundation of their dream house had just disappeared. And I wasn't done. Not yet. The call came just after noon. I didn't recognize the number, but I answered anyway. Declan's voice exploded through the speaker, panicked, high-pitched, nothing like the man who had stood smug in my kitchen 2 nights ago. "Camille, what the hell did you do?" he barked. "The bank called. They said the guarantor pulled out. The loan's been denied. You killed this deal. Do you even understand what you've done?" I said nothing, just let the silence expand until it made him squirm. Then I answered calm and clear. I did what Brielle asked. "I'm staying away." I hung up before he could respond. An hour later, the banging started. Not knocking, banging. My front door rattled under their fists. I watched from the peephole as Brielle paced like a woman unhinged, her eyes wild. "Camille, open this door right now," she screamed. "You are ruining everything." Declan was behind her, trying to soften the performance. "Just talk to us," he said. "Please. Think of Mom. Think of everything we've all been through." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood behind the door and watched them unravel. When they finally left their voices trailing into the hallway, I sat down at my kitchen table and opened a new folder on my desktop. I titled it Court Evidence. One by one, I added the photos, the swelling, the bruise on my ribs, the split in my lip, the screenshot of Brielle's text, the withdrawal confirmation from the bank. I wasn't building a case out of revenge. I was building it because I knew people like them, people who'd twist a story until the truth suffocated under guilt and reputation and family ties. But I had something new now. I had documentation, and I had no intention of being quiet ever again. The next morning, my phone rang again. This time, it was my mother. I let it go to voicemail. Then, another call came through, and another. By the fourth, I answered. Her voice came through tight with frustration. "Camille, what is going on? Brielle told me you pulled your name from the loan. Are you really willing to destroy your sister's future over a disagreement?" "A disagreement." I didn't speak. I wanted to ask if she knew about the bruises, about the punch, about the silence Brielle chose. But I didn't, because I already knew the answer. "You've always been so dramatic," she continued. "You push people away and then act like the victim. I raised 2 daughters. I won't let one tear the other down out of spite." I hung up. A few hours later, my Aunt Carol called. I hadn't spoken to her in months. She launched in without even saying hello. "Your mother told me everything. I'm just so disappointed, Camille. Your sister's under stress. The wedding, the house, it's a lot. You should be supporting her, not punishing her." I almost laughed. That was the moment it all crystallized. This wasn't about a punch or a mortgage. It was about ones I was never meant to leave. Brielle was the one who stumbled, and I was the one who stayed quiet. That was the balance they all depended on. They weren't calling to understand. They were calling to restore the order. But I wasn't returning to it. I blocked their numbers and added the voicemails to the folder. It wasn't just Brielle and Declan anymore. It was the whole system, and I was done playing my part in it. The envelope arrived on a Thursday, thick official and stamped with courthouse ink. A temporary restraining order, filed by Brielle. I read it once then again, and still couldn't believe what it said. According to her sworn statement, I was unstable, obsessed, and had violently confronted her out of jealousy. She called me dangerous, a threat. For a moment I couldn't breathe. Not from fear, but from the precision of the lie. She was trying to flip the script, make me the monster in the very story I'd bled in. But I had evidence. And I had Ayla Connors. My lawyer was sharp, unshaken, and knew exactly what we were walking into. The courtroom was small but packed. Brielle dabbed at her dry eyes. Declan sat beside her, lips tight. My mother wouldn't even look at me. Their attorney opened with practiced sympathy, painting me as a vindictive sister bent on ruining a happy couple's future. They twisted every fact into suspicion, every silence into guilt. And then it was our turn. Ayla didn't posture. She laid out facts. First, the photos, high-resolution time-stamped. My face, my ribs, my split lip. Next, the medical report, blunt force trauma, internal bruising consistent with physical assault. Finally, the footage, grainy, silent, undeniable. The courtroom went still as the video played. Brielle lunging, me shoved backward, Declan watching and walking away. The judge turned to them after a long silence. "Petition denied," she said sharply. "And consider yourself fortunate Ms. Reyes isn't filing charges." They didn't speak. They couldn't. I didn't celebrate. I just gathered my things, nodded at Ayla, and walked out with Mariah. But the hallway wasn't empty. Not yet. She was waiting for me just outside the courtroom, shoulders tense, mascara smudged like she wanted it to look accidental. Her eyes met mine, and for the first time there was no spark of certainty behind them. "Camille," she said, voice low and shaky. "Can we just talk?" I didn't stop walking. She caught up beside me, reaching lightly for my arm. I pulled back. "I didn't know it would get this far," she said quickly. Declan said." She stopped, the sentence collapsing under its own weight. I turned just enough to face her. "You stood there. You let him hit me. You watched me on the floor and said nothing. And then you called me dangerous." Cam, I didn't mean you are no longer my sister. It wasn't anger in my voice. It was stillness. And something in her recognized it. Her mouth parted like she wanted to argue or cry or beg, but nothing came out. She just stood there, small and wordless, as I walked away. Outside the courthouse, the air felt thin and sharp. Mariah was waiting with the car, and when I slid into the passenger seat, neither of us spoke. She just drove one hand on the wheel, the other resting lightly near mine. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and opened my phone. One by one, I deleted their numbers: Brielle, Declan, my mother, my aunt. Then I opened my laptop and created a new email folder. Peace. I didn't move the voicemails or screenshots there. I didn't need to. That folder wasn't for evidence. It was for the things I was learning to protect. And for the first time in years, I shut my computer without bracing for what might come next. A year passed like a season. I had finally stopped resisting. I poured myself into work, not to forget, but to remember what I was capable of. I let a major product launch took over as department head and stopped apologizing for knowing what I was doing. On Tuesday nights, I took a ceramics class at the community center. My hands learned to shape what once felt impossible to hold. Clay didn't care about my past. It just responded to pressure, consistency, and patience. By November, my apartment was warm with the hum of voices and laughter. I hosted Friendsgiving for the first time. Mariah brought wine. Nate made a weirdly perfect turkey. We sat on mismatched chairs and passed food over stories that made us laugh until we cried. It was everything my family dinners weren't. Then last week, a letter arrived. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. I didn't open it right away. I didn't need to. That night, I stood over the recycling bin and quietly tore it in half. Then, in quarters. No anger, just finality. Out on my balcony, the cactus I bought after the hearing had bloomed. A single pink flower, small but defiant, perched at the top like a flag. I watered it slowly, then sat beside it, legs tucked under me, listening to the wind. I used to think strength meant never cracking. Now I know it's what you grow in the cracks. The numbers blurred slightly on my screen as the notification banner slid across the top of my phone. I almost ignored it. My calendar was blocked off for quarterly reporting, and I was halfway through reconciling revenue against the new projection model. But something about the preview made me pause, finally blocking my toxic sister. Family is better without her drama. The username confirmed it. Raina. I tapped. Her post was longer than usual. It started with that headline, then flowed into a caption that read like a therapy manifesto. Some people never grow up. They never take responsibility for their energy, their choices, or the harm they bring. Cutting out toxic family members isn't cruel, it's self-care. 43 likes, 17 comments, most of them supportive. A few from our mutual cousins, all heart emojis and praise. So proud of you for choosing peace. Boundaries are love. You deserve better. I didn't scroll further. I leaned back in my chair and looked out the window. From the 28th floor downtown, Seattle looked soft, distant, like a place someone else lived. I didn't comment. I didn't message her. I didn't even feel angry. I just reached for the landline on my desk. Hi, Jennifer. It's Celeste. I need you to rescind the offer we extended to Raina Marin yesterday. A pause, then confusion. But she already accepted the role. We're drafting the onboarding packet now. I understand. Tell her the position's been eliminated due to budget restructuring. Another pause. Celeste, is there something I should know? There's a conflict of interest I wasn't aware of until this morning. Understood. I hung up, reached for my tea now cold, and took a sip anyway. 3 years ago, I'd started Meridian Tech in a one-bedroom apartment with $47,000 scraped together from freelance projects and a stubborn refusal to quit. Now we had 37 full-time employees and revenue just past $8 million. Raina had no idea I was the CEO. As far as she knew, I was still the sister who built pretty websites and didn't have a real job. She'd been offered a position here just yesterday, director of marketing. $95,000 salary, full benefits, equity after year 1. She was excited. She'd posted about it. Now she was going to learn what it meant to block someone without knowing which door you were locking. When I first started building Meridian, my desk was a salvaged kitchen table with a cracked leg and a wobble I never bothered to fix. I took client calls from the hallway because the walls in my apartment were too thin. The idea was simple web development UX SEO bundles, nothing fancy, but I treated every client like they were Google. I remember working past midnight with ramen on the stove and a second monitor flashing lines of code. I taught myself payroll onboarding contracts, no investors, just grit and deadlines and a coffee pot that never rested. I used Mom's maiden name Marin for professional separation. At first, it was a technical decision. Later, it became something else. My family never really asked what I did, not beyond polite curiosity. Still doing that website stuff, Dad would say over Thanksgiving dinner. I'd nod, swallowing mashed potatoes instead of the truth. They never asked how much I made, never asked about the clients, the staff, the new office lease. I don't think it was malice, just assumption. To them, I was the quiet one who dropped out of college and never quite figured it out. Raina was the one they bragged about. She worked at a mid-sized firm, made $65,000 a year. Health benefits, matching 401k. She wore heels and posted charts on LinkedIn. She once told me, "At some point, you need to think about your future. Freelance isn't a long-term path." I smiled, didn't bother correcting her. The irony, she was good at what she did. She knew how to pitch, how to position. She just didn't know how to look sideways to see beyond the resume in front of her. 6 months ago, our HR team started looking for a director of marketing. I forwarded her portfolio under a different name. Let her work speak for itself. She made it through the process, beat out 47 other candidates. I never told anyone, not even Jennifer. She earned it, but she never asked who had quietly opened the first door. She still thought I was on the outside of success, pressing my face to the glass. She had no idea I was the one who built the building, and yesterday she walked through that glass door with pride, thinking it was hers. Today, she'll find out it never even opened. By noon, the next day, Raina's Instagram story had turned grayscale. A quote against a cloudy background. Sometimes, just when you think everything is falling into place, it collapses. Then another. The universe is testing me. No mention of the company. No direct blame. Just a string of curated grief designed for maximum sympathy and plausible deniability. The same people who had applauded her for cutting out toxic family were now replying with crying emojis and virtual hugs. One aunt commented, "Everything happens for a reason, sweetheart." My cousin Lila wrote, "Maybe it's that negative energy finally getting out of your way." I didn't respond. I didn't refresh. By 3, my phone buzzed. It was Mom. "Celeste, I just saw Raina's posts. She's really upset." I saw them too. She said her job offer was rescinded. "Do you know anything about that?" I let the question hang. Not because I didn't have an answer, but because I already knew the conversation wasn't about information. It was about positioning, about whose side I was expected to stand on. She thinks maybe, I don't know, maybe your energy somehow interfered. My energy. She's just hurt. You know how she gets when things don't go her way. She called me toxic in front of the entire extended family. She told the world we're better off apart. And now that something falls apart for her, I'm the ghost in the machine, Celeste. You know she doesn't mean half of what she says online. But she meant it enough to post it, to leave it there. There was a pause. Maybe you could reach out, be the bigger person. I was the bigger person. I kept my mouth shut. I didn't humiliate her in return. But I won't clean up a mess I didn't make. Families fight. That doesn't mean they stop being family. Then maybe she should have remembered that before deciding I wasn't part of hers. Mom sighed. She's just going through a lot. I ended the call before I said something I'd regret. But inside, I wondered why grief always made people rewrite the past, and why my silence was so easy to villainize when hers was drenched in applause. At 5:17 p.m., her name lit up my phone like it hadn't insulted me that same morning. "Hey, I know we're not really talking, but I just really need someone to vent to. The job I was supposed to start Monday got canceled. Can you call me?" For 10 seconds, I stared at the screen, wondering what kind of memory Raina had. Selective, clearly. Selective enough to forget that only hours ago I was the sister she declared disposable in front of every person we shared DNA with. I didn't call. I sent a screenshot, her post, her words, her performance. You said the family is better without me. She responded faster than I expected. That was just Instagram drama. I didn't mean it personally. Another screenshot, this time of her caption, finally blocking my toxic sister. You named me Raina. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then I was venting. I didn't think you'd even see it. But everyone else did, and they applauded you for it. She hesitated again. I was upset. I wasn't trying to hurt you. Then what were you trying to do? Teach me a lesson. Score sympathy. Celeste, please. I just need someone to talk to. No. You need someone to pretend none of this happened. You're being too sensitive. That did it. You made my identity a prop for your emotional monologue. Now you want comfort because something didn't go your way. You want my support in private after condemning me in public. No reply. Minutes passed. I'm really struggling right now. Can we please not do this? I sat with her message like it was a riddle. I reread it 3 times. You turned my existence into content. You made it a statement. Now that you're hurting, you expect empathy. What exactly do you think I owe you? Still nothing. It was the first time in a long time I felt the silence working in my favor. Not because it meant I won, but because it finally didn't mean I was retreating. She had curated an image of herself as a woman standing up for her peace. She just didn't expect the fallout when the person she cut off didn't come crawling back. The next evening, I answered her call. Raina's voice cracked like glass under pressure. Celeste, I'm sorry. I was having a terrible week and I took it out on you. I let her speak. She filled the space with soft admissions, the kind meant to sound brave but felt rehearsed. I know I was wrong to say those things. I didn't realize how much it would hurt you. You didn't think it would matter, I said quietly, because you assumed I had nothing to lose. She fell silent. What were you even upset about when you posted that I asked? She sighed. Work stuff mostly. And just the feeling that Mom and Dad worry more about you than they celebrate anything I do. I almost laughed. You think they're worried about me? They talk about you like you're fragile, she said. Like one wrong step and you'll fall apart. I took a breath. And that bothers you because you think I don't deserve their concern. No, she said quickly. It bothers me because they don't notice when I'm quietly holding everything together. I let that sit. It wasn't the worst thing she'd said. So I asked the job that got rescinded what company was it. With, she answered without hesitation. Meridian Tech Solutions. They're supposed to be this incredible company. Small but growing fast. The CEO is apparently this brilliant woman who built everything from scratch. I nodded even though she couldn't see me. Sounds impressive. It was. The salary alone would have changed my life. I waited a beat. Raina, that company, that's mine. Silence. What, I'm the CEO? I founded Meridian Tech 3 years ago. She didn't respond. The line went dead for nearly half a minute. But you're just a freelance web designer. I was. Then I became something else. Wait. So, when I interviewed, you were applying to work for the sister you publicly called toxic. Her breath caught. I didn't know. That's exactly the problem. I wouldn't have. She stopped. Wouldn't have what said if you knew or meant it. I just didn't think. No, you didn't. You assumed I was beneath you. You assumed I was harmless. She started crying. I'm so sorry. I swear I didn't mean any of it. Would you still be saying that I asked if I was just a struggling freelancer living in a small apartment? She didn't answer, and that told me everything. 2 weeks passed before I heard from her again. In that time, I didn't reach out. I didn't block her either. I just watched from a quiet distance as something in her shifted. It started with a post I almost missed. No hashtags, no aesthetic quote background, just plain text against white. I said some things out of stress and pride. I hurt someone I love, and I want to take responsibility for that. I was wrong, deeply wrong, and I'm sorry. No names. But it was enough. Later that week, I found out she had started volunteering with a nonprofit that helped job seekers rebuild after layoffs. Resume coaching, mock interviews, networking prep. I read about it through a tagged photo. Raina sitting beside a man in his 50s helping him revise a cover letter. No filters. Just a quiet moment of care. She didn't text me again right away, but she posted another update the following weekend. Humility isn't weakness. It's the beginning of empathy. I'm learning to listen. I didn't respond, but I didn't scroll past either. A few days later, I ran into Jennifer by the elevators. "Your sister's doing good work," she said casually. "She's not working here," I replied, cautious. "I know," Jennifer said, "but I saw her name on a community bulletin about employment outreach. Thought you might want to know." I nodded, said nothing. I wasn't ready to rewrite the story just yet. Apologies don't erase erasure, but I couldn't ignore what I saw either. I'd spent years pretending my silence was strength. Raina had spent just as long pretending success meant climbing higher than everyone else. Now she was starting to ask better questions, the kind that don't come with a ladder at all. And for the first time in our lives, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was beginning to understand what real growth looks like. We met at the cafe across from the library where Mom used to take us on Saturdays. It wasn't intentional, but I felt the irony when I sat down. Some places hold echoes whether you invite them or not. Raina was late by 5 minutes. No makeup, no filter, no performance. Just a wool coat and a notebook she didn't open. "Thanks for coming," she said quietly. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her and waited. She fiddled with the edge of her sleeve. "I know you probably don't want to hear another apology." "I don't," I said. "But say what you came to say." She nodded like she expected that. "I thought I was doing everything right. College, career, health insurance, rent on time. I thought if I just kept checking boxes, someone would notice." "They noticed," I said. "They just didn't praise you the way you wanted." She looked up. "And then you dropped out and started freelancing, and somehow they still worried more about you." I waited. "I was jealous," she said finally. "Not of your life, but of how they hovered over you like you were fragile. Like your failure mattered more than my effort." That landed. And I guess I started believing I had to discredit you in order to feel seen. "So you erased me," I said, in front of the people who already questioned my worth. Her face flushed. "It wasn't about erasing you. It was about proving something. To them. To myself. By publicly calling me toxic, I thought I was drawing a boundary. No, Raina, you were drawing a spotlight, and you pointed it away from yourself." She winced. "I didn't realize how cruel it sounded until I saw your screenshots. You didn't think it would cost you anything. I didn't think you mattered enough to hurt." She didn't mean it as harshly as it sounded, but the truth often echoes louder than intention. "I'm sorry," she said, voice shaking. "Not because you're successful now, but because I judged you when I thought you weren't. And that's worse. I didn't speak right away. I let the silence do some of the work. Then I said, you wanted them to see you. So you shrank me." "I know. That doesn't justify what you did. It doesn't." She agreed. "I just want to try and do better. You don't get to skip the part where I don't trust you." "I'm not asking to skip it. I'm asking to earn something real." Slowly. I studied her. There was no angle this time, just discomfort and truth. "We've never had a real relationship," I said. "I know. Maybe it's time to stop pretending we lost something and start being honest about what we never had." She nodded. "Starting from scratch, then starting from here." We didn't hug. We didn't promise anything, but we didn't pretend either. And that was new. We told them we needed to talk just to the four of us. No birthdays, no holidays, no distractions. Just a quiet Sunday afternoon and a dining table we hadn't all sat around in years. Dad poured coffee. Mom set out plates even though no one was hungry. I pulled out my laptop and opened the Meridian Tech homepage. "This is my company," I said. Dad leaned forward, squinting. "You built this. I founded it 3 years ago. We just crossed $8 million in annual revenue." He blinked. "Wait, you're telling us you own this?" "Yes." Mom's hand covered her mouth. "Why didn't you tell us?" I looked at her. "You never asked." She looked like she'd been slapped, but I didn't say it cruelly. Just plainly. Just truthfully. Raina shifted beside me. "She's right," she said quietly. None of us asked. We just assumed. Dad looked at her, then back at me. But all those years we thought you were barely getting by. I know, you let us think that. I didn't correct you, I said. And after a while, I wanted to see what you'd say when you thought I had nothing to offer. Nobody spoke. Mom finally whispered. But we were just trying to help. Were you? I asked. Or were you just trying to fix me into something that made more sense to you? The silence after that was deeper than the one before. Then Raina spoke again. She's not being harsh. She's being honest. And she's earned that. Dad leaned back. I don't even know what to say. Maybe just say you see me now, I offered. Mom reached for my hand. We do. We really do. But the part of me that still remembered being politely dismissed every Thanksgiving, every birthday, every phone call, they weren't ready to believe it yet. Applause sounds different when it only comes after the trophy is visible.